Because the big question that I'm raising, is the Jet Etihad deal then in the national interest, or is it not in the national interest? That's the big question that we're raising tonight. Joining me now on my panel, and we'll raise all the big questions in a moment as to why this deal is being seen by some against the national interest, but by many that it is for the national interest. Subramanian Swamy of the Janata Party is the man who raised this initial objection against this deal. TSR Subramaniam, former cabinet secretary, is with us. Kapil Kaul, CEO South Asia of Kappa, who looks closely at the aviation sector. Karma Paljor, who tracks it closely, is also with us. Captain Gopinath, former MD Air Deccan and entrepreneur, is with us. And Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress, is also joining us. Appreciate all of you joining us, but I'm going to, as I place all those big questions, and they'll come on your screen one by one on your on the lower side of your screen. Dr. Subramanian Swamy, today the Prime Minister in his letter has made it very clear that this deal has not even been cleared. It's still going through the regulatory process. Yet you went and jumped the gun. On May 29th, you made an accusation against the government that there were national security concerns being violated, that there was an alleged whiff of corruption, and you have gone for the government. Now, even before the deal is finally goes through the regulatory mechanism, you have raised the bogey of corruption. Are you in a sense targeting, some would say, dare I say, blackmailing this government? Well, you're intimidating the government.
Well, it is the duty of the opposition to bring these things to public record. Had I not written that letter, on June 11th, yes, the FIPB would have cleared the project. The Prime Minister says that he has been raising this issue on the 22nd of from the 22nd of April. He did not even go to Abu Dhabi for a bilateral visit. Yes, of course you are not. I have never held the Prime Minister responsible. It is you in the media who are talking about his U-turn and all that. I certainly think that he has done what he could do within the constraints that have been placed on him. I only say this. Today we have a parliamentary committee which says it's not in the national interest. We have the operators in this yes, who are looking after passenger interests. They are saying it's not in the interest. Air India says it's not in our interest. Such a large spectrum of people are saying that it is not in our interest. Then the Prime Minister draws the attention of Mr. Ajit Singh to a intelligence joint intelligence committee prepared report on the impact of Middle Eastern airlines on Indian airlines and national security. Now, national security issues are not raised by me alone. It's been raised on a document which has been brought to the attention of Mr. Ajit Singh. Mr. Ajit Singh is asked to convene, prepare a cabinet note so the cabinet meeting can be called. He is given a reminder, and still the cabinet meeting has not taken place. So you're effectively saying that there was an attempt by ministers in this government to push through this deal in haste. That's your charge. That despite the Prime Minister, I will say that Mr. Ajit Singh had a joint secretary on 22nd in Abu Dhabi waiting to sign. The nigger in the woodpile was the interministerial group which opposed this deal, and that's where the problem arose, and that's why he went to the Prime Minister. But let me also tell you. Let me quote from your own letter. You say my usually reliable sources tell me that if this deal is finally cleared and implemented, it would destroy the Indian airline industry, especially Air India, and empower a foreign airline, and a nation known for money laundering will become a hub for India's passenger traffic. That's right. Now, surely all these issues, as the Prime Minister's letter says, are being debated in a regulator. Well, it is a question of debating. They are before the FIPB. Some of these issues are before SEBI. You are prejudging the entire issue. FIPB cleared Air Asia because there was no opposition at that time. Because of my letter, the FIPB could not clear it. No, that's why it got delayed. It seems to be suggesting as if Subramanian Swamy is the only one in this country that the regulators don't matter. Only you know what is right for India and what is not right for India. Well, I can always say what is right, and I have proved it by going to court on the 2G spectrum matter and so many other matters. I can tell you today this deal is much worse than any other deal we have signed so far. Okay.
Understanding the global flow of increased international traffic and taking a pragmatic discussion.
I'll come to my aviation experts in a moment because they are important to this debate. But Mr. Subramaniam, first on the bureaucratic point. What am I to understand today when the Prime Minister or the PMO in his note says yes, the deal is being reviewed. It is going through various regulatory authorities. We will bring it into the cabinet level. This after a group of ministers headed by Mr. Chidambaram and 3 senior ministers went through the deal, gave it its approval. Now today in the month of July, after the approval by the GOM, suddenly the Prime Minister is saying we will take it to the cabinet. Is this Prime Minister simply playing safe to avoid a 2G-like situation emerging? Or is this Prime Minister simply indecisive and worried about the fallout of a deal like this? Is it indecision or is it running scared of a 2G-like situation?
There are a very large number of issues in different dimensions. We are trying to compress them in a 5-10 minute kind of a debate. Let me make only 2 points here. One is the substance of the deal.
Yes.
There are 2-3 very important issues coming up there that it appears that we have shot first and then we take aim. We have done the deal. After that, we are discussing it here, what the contours of the deal are, etc. What is the implication on other airlines, what is the implication on airline industry, etc., etc. Having done that, we use a bilateral for our FDI policy without seeing the implication of what it means to the entire sector. Has this FDI killed all FDI in our airline industry is a question. So there are all kinds of questions there. But let me come back to let other experts talk about it. I don't want to pass a judgment on this. I have 2 concerns here. There is an interministerial group.
Yes.
However much you downgrade them, you put them sweep them under the carpet, they have got a point to make. What are those points? Has anyone looked at them? I looked at what you call very nobly the group of ministers. It's not a group of ministers, it's a sheet of paper. A group of ministers is something which is formally constituted by government or by a cabinet committee. This is just a sheet of paper. And
but then what is the point in having a group of ministers? The Prime Minister tells Mr. Chidambaram to go through the deal.
You are making my point. You are making my point. Under the rules of business, any group of ministers,
yes,
the minutes have to be prepared by a permanent official of the government, by a permanent official. Now, leave that aside. That group of ministers gives 4 findings.
Yes.
It does not rebut any of it doesn't even refer to the arguments made. In fact, the chairman of the group of ministers, their own ministry has objections in this particular area. My question here is that how cavalier can we be in taking decisions here? Government has a right to take decisions, provided they look at all aspects, but they have no right to take decisions first and then have it examined later.
That's an interesting point, that you've taken the decision and now we are going.
And lastly,
yes,
the public would like to know, are the objections of the interministerial group valid or not? Are they substantive or not?
Can I for a moment take those objections to our aviation experts?
One
yes,
correction.
Yes.
The Prime Minister did not ask Mr. Chidambaram to evaluate the deal. He asked him to find out whether, as Mr. Ajit Singh requested, whether the recommendation of the interministerial group can be overruled.
But it can, effectively Mr. Chidambaram did give the green signal.
He may have exceeded his brief.
That's your view, Mr. Swamy, that you believe that he...
Global muscle of an Etihad, who's got presence in so many countries, 80 destinations. But that aside, just wanted to put one question to Dr. Swamy. Sir, the FDI in aviation was cleared. For allowing foreign airlines to invest in India. Wasn't that the time for you to raise these concerns?
No.
Emirates flies from Dubai, flies from Dubai. They have, sir, 54,000 seats they are operating out of India. Why didn't you highlight these issues? Why didn't you talk about Air India? Why didn't you talk about Indigo at the time when the government enhanced bilaterals for them? I mean, that was the time, or the time when the government decided to allow FDI by foreign. That was the right time for a
What is so specific about this deal, Dr. Swamy, that has got you into a lather? That is the bottom line. If, for example, the hub was in Singapore or Bangkok, would you have got into a lather? Is it Abu Dhabi that is troubling you? Is it Etihad's alleged ownership and money laundering charges you make against Gulf countries that trouble you? What is it that is troubling you about this deal?
Well, first of all, I don't specialize in airline industry like you. So therefore, I don't concentrate on every move in the airline industry.
It's just a figure, sir.
No, but hold on, Dr. Swamy, I must intervene again. You today have again gone and written a letter now on Air Asia.
Yes.
Again, you are saying Air Asia's deal needs to be re-examined and the entire deal needs to be probed again. So it appears that you have suddenly found an interest in the aviation sector.
And there, because I didn't write in advance, it cleared the FIPB.
No, so what is it? Why suddenly now?
I am saying that I have seen a report. I have written a new letter to the Prime Minister,
yes,
pointing out to him the Joint Intelligence Committee report on the FDI effect on national security, which is, I am sorry, I can't make it public because it is absolutely top secret. Number one. Number two, the Prime Minister has referred to in his own memo that Ajit Singh should look at the impact of Middle Eastern airlines on Indian airline industry. Now that also has, I have seen a big write-up on the national security. Mr. Yechuri's committee also mentions national security.
But as Mr. Subramanian says, all these issues should have been discussed, debated before you went in for an FDI policy. You've now gone in for an FDI policy.
FDI plus bilateral.
I have come in when I have found others who wrote, received no response.
Yes.
Many wrote before me. It's not that they came much earlier. And I came in at a time when it appeared that this deal was going to go through, and Mr. Chidambaram seemed to be hell-bent to clear it.
No, that's my worry. Is this again Dr. Swamy versus Chidambaram?
No,
is there something? Because even in Air Asia today, you have indicated that it's the finance minister who in some way
there
is
is
pushing
no
this
corrupt
deal
deal in the country today which Mr. Chidambaram doesn't have a hand in.
No, but
finance minister.
Hold on,
wait a minute.
Hold on, Dr. Swamy. Mr. Chidambaram is not on this program. You are making a straight defamatory allegation here.
I am talking to you as finance minister. He is in every one of those deals. So therefore, that's the issue.
No, ultimately it's the government's responsibility. You cannot blame an individual.
Government's responsibility. Where do I challenge that? In the court. In the Etisalat matter also, we had an intelligence input,
yes,
which was overlooked by the FIPB. And I want to say to you today that when I say there is a serious national security issue, it is after examining the holding pattern of the Etihad, which includes Pakistanis as did the Etisalat.
Okay, you're going to raise the national security issue, and I'll come back to that also.
Why not Singapore? Why not Turkey? Why not Abu
Dhabi? Here we are talking about opening up the economy, but this is precisely what has happened.
With that.
Because this opening up of the economy leads to cronyism. We've seen that in the telecom sector. Now we are seeing in the civil aviation in the absence of clear, transparent rules.
We need to open up, and exactly the same syndrome we are seeing here.
Yes.
In telecom and in coal, we did not have a policy. We did ad hoc, and we see where we have gotten into. Yes. And Call has explained now precisely what is happening in this sector. Yes. We are putting the cart before the horse.
Yes.
We need to open up. We need FDI. Are you going to have one more bilateral for each FDI? Because without the bilateral, no FDI is going to come down.
Because you see, policy is a continuum.
The system.
Policy is a continuum. It has to be followed by every government.
It is the government.
You believe it has suited every government, every bureaucracy in a sense to retain the discretionary power of deciding with which airline to have a bilateral and with which to not.
Yes, it has been highly. No, there has been no policy at all. The policy has been to go purely on an ad hoc.
Because it suits the interest. It suits the interest of the political establishment in power.
2G and Colgate, the same principles apply here. Only two more things.
Yes.
How is it we can cavalierly
ignore
6 ministries, 8 ministries, 9 comments?
Yes.
And then the public doesn't even know what they are.
Interministerial group.
Let us at least know what the objections are. How can we even
can I therefore then turn to the Prime Minister's note once again?
Yeah.
Dr. Swamy, you must answer this. The Prime Minister's note makes it clear that the private equity deal is between two principals, Jet and Etihad. Government has nothing to do with it. Then it says that the bilateral service agreement in this instance is subject to cabinet approval and regulatory approvals. Are there not sufficient, effectively suggesting that there are sufficient checks and balances in the system to ensure that the deal is not simply a sellout as you seem to imply?
I'll tell you why it's not correct.
Yes.
On 28th of February, Jet Airways announced its deal with Etihad.
Yes.
Immediately, the Amir of Abu Dhabi said no such deal has been worked out because certain assurances of the government of India have not yet materialized.
Yes.
Then comes this bilateral deal.
Yes.
And you find that even before any agreement, the delegation from the ministry is there to sign, and so is Mr. Naresh Goyal in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
And at that time, Mr. Ajit Singh realizes that maybe because of the interministerial group recommendation, the Prime Minister may not agree. He goes to the Prime Minister and says, I want to overrule the IMG, for which Mr. Prime Minister asked Mr. Chidambaram to discuss the matter. Mr. Chidambaram goes one step forward and decides the matter.
You're saying a charade was enacted. You're saying a charade was that it had already been decided more or less what was to be done.
And they were all there to sign.
But you know,
and they signed on 24th.
Yeah, but you know, you've been making one consistent point about security concerns.
Yes.
Let's be honest. Etihad flies across the world.
Yes.
It flies into this country. Right? It is not as if Etihad doesn't fly across the world. It flies to 50 countries across the world. When you raise security concerns, you need to prove that those security concerns.
I have so told you that there is a report to which the Prime Minister himself had asked Mr. Ajit Singh to go into.
The Prime Minister certainly doesn't raise it in his note.
He may not put it in those words, but what does he say? The role of Middle Eastern airlines on Indian airlines. What does that mean? Then there is a joint intelligence committee report which I have referred to in my latest letter to the Prime Minister when it came to the question of Aircel Maxis deal, where the fact was hidden that the Aircel Maxis was owned to the extent of 35% by Saudi Telecom. That should have been brought up.
No, we are coming to effectively countries then which operate out, carriers which operate out of Middle East will face the charge every time that Dr. Swamy is going to say. I asked him this question, that if tomorrow the same agreement had been struck with Singapore Airlines, would he have
same agreement with any country I am against.
It's any country. But do you believe that Middle East countries are particularly vulnerable?
So Mr. Swamy, in effect, we should not fly Emirates, we should not fly Dubai. The 54,000 seat entitlement that Emirates has to India, so should never have been done. This does not make sense, because the kind of
I'll answer your question. I've understood it.
Let me finish, sir. The kind of benefits that the passengers are getting, I mean, a lot of us have flown by Emirates. The kind of tickets, the cheap tickets that we get have certainly benefited the passengers. Today you can fly to Dubai and fly out of Dubai for 30,000-40,000.
I've heard this argument from Mr. Raja about the tariffs on the mobile phones.
It's not an argument.
I'm not on
reality. It's a reality. We do fly.
The question is, all this is subject to the minimum considerations of national security. Okay, so I'm only saying this, that when it comes to a question of national security, there are agencies which have to have the inputs. In the FIPB, they should have called for a security report. They did not call for it. Why didn't they not call for it?
Hold on. So is Kapil called the real issue now, looking at it from a national security perspective? Because as FDI opens, as the aviation sector opens, more and more countries and more airlines will possibly want to come in the near future. So is the real answer to this entire issue, have a clear, transparent policy so that people know exactly on what basis you are giving these various bilateral service agreements. That's where it boils down to. Then the Dr. Swamis of the world will not be able to post facto raise their issues.
There are not many Dr. Swamis of the world.
Okay, there are not many Dr. Swamis of the world. You're unique. Yes.
Quick